Hello and welcome back to Mickfield Hostas, and I do apologise for not having given you a video before now, and I'm extra sorry because the garden did look absolutely lovely up to a few weeks back, but now everything's looking very autumnal. But hey, that's what happens some years. I really did think we'd have a longer season this year because it started quite late, but then a lot of the plants are up March time, and then they got hit with the coldest, driest April we've had for a little while. The depth of the cold wasn't the problem so much as the fact that we had very dry winds, no rain, and a frost every night of April. So that combination really wasn't very good for the garden, for the hostas primarily, that had come up nice and early. Just wandered over to the rubber rockery. In the background you'll hear the sounds of harvest still going strong. And yeah, it seems crazy. We took the decision last week to shut the nursery a month earlier than normal because everything's looking autumnal. But as I promised, a video of progress, and I think I can safely say the rubber rockery is starting to be quite successful. It's looked a treat this year. I am quite annoyed with myself that I didn't take a video earlier, just too busy. But now they're all kind of looking a little bit sorry for themselves. They've been hit by hail and flattened by quite a lot of wind. And right now they're quite dry. So the poor things, they're surviving despite everything really. So what I'll do, I'll just give you a walk around and show you what's in where, because I did have a few moves in the spring for things that weren't doing quite so well or slightly agoraphobic because they're in too much space. So here we go, and I've got where cherub was, I've got radiant edger. I moved that one round, and the little cherub I think we might have lost. There were a couple of leaves and that's what's left. Hey ho, these things happen. I put him in with Niagara Falls, which is starting to find its feet after being seriously undermined last year, but still somewhat stunted. I think, well, I did decide to have a look at the roots and what have you, but it was actually so nicely rooted in there, I thought, right, I won't disturb. I'll just let it get on with it. So that's what I've done. Just what this experiment's all about, really. Then I've got poor little old Arctic Blast. That was reduced to a handful of leaves early on in the season, having been eaten by something. Might have been rabbits, it might have been deer. It's more likely to have been deer really, because we don't tend to have rabbits this side of the garden. Then we've got Goldbrook grayling. You'll see as I come round the damage to the leaves from things like hail. And Vernagine. Did actually think that the trees would have sheltered them quite well, but when the rain is really cold, it can have the same effect as hail and just damage the cells of the leaves, little round dots that then heal up. At the back here, sorry I haven't been saying what they are, the label should tell you, but there I've got Katie Q. I took Mary Marianne out of that tire because she really wasn't looking very happy. That was Gold Edger Surprise and Vernagine. And then Yellow Polka Dot Bikini, looking its autumn colours. It's one that has a very, very rich creamy yellow margin to it in the spring. And a lot of people go for it at that stage. I quite like it as it develops more of a leaf within a leaf colour this end of the year. And where Arctic Blast had been, I put a purple heart. Lovely rich dark green leaves with red stems, but as you can see, this has had a visit from some vine weevil. Those telltale marks on the edges of the leaves, quite often, trying to see if I can see, well, notches out of the stem as well. That is vine weevil, and the problem with red stem varieties is vine weevil seem to love nesting in them. We always know to look in our red stem varieties when we start on our weevil hunting. And the only thing that they don't really like apart from aggressive chemicals, which we don't like to use, is fresh soil. So quite often we'll make the effort to pot up our red stem varieties on an annual basis just to mitigate that. And I can't remember, but Lakeside Anita's going to get another viewing if she wasn't already on the video. And then Quilting Bee. And at the back I've got a Patriot where I'd had, was one of the others that I've put in with something else now. I think it was Red Cadet, which is currently in with Regalia. I'll show you in a moment. And Shimmy Shake, a real favourite of mine. When it's outside, it very rarely scorches. It's lovely. And the problem is when I've got it in the polytunnels, that it tends to get just too hot or too dry in there, and they always scorch. So hopefully by turning to the net, that will help mitigate that a little bit. But outside in the full spectrum of light, it's absolutely fine. And then in front of that I've got Dorset Charm, which is a beautiful blue during the year, but when it gets to autumn, its bloom has gone, so it's now a green. And in with Regalia, gorgeous plant. Again, during the season, in the spring, it has the most beautiful bloom to it, so the colouring is incredibly subtle. It's still subtle now, but the bloom has gone, so you've got that shiny, rich two-tone of green. Very nice. And there's our little Red Cadet, doing much better now. It's got a bit of company. And so is Glass Hearts. That was struggling. I only had a single piece of that, but that's now come back a little bit stronger this year now. It's got a bit of company. Then in front I've got Moon Lily. And that's a lovely little plant. Gorgeous colour. And then Gumdrop. Lakeside Spruce Goose, and stretch over to Mrs. Minky. And then I've got Amy Elizabeth. I'll zoom in on there, where you can see the subtle variegation on the edges of that plant. Very, very pretty and delicate. Do like that one very much. And it's related to Abby, which I have in front, which has the opposite variegation. And these are heading up to be, well, probably about half the size they will be ultimately. The leaves will get bigger, and the spread and the height probably about double in size. And then we have Spring Break that's getting a little bit strangled with some bramble again. I do apologise for the state of my weeding, or lack of it. I didn't think this was going to survive, but it's doing really well. The problem is, trying to do any weeding at the moment, the ground is so hard. All you're doing is taking heads off, which is a waste of time. Then we've got Tango. Then Harry Van Trier. And underneath Negressens, I've got Lil Dewar that was struggling like mad. And it's looking a little bit dry and sorry for itself, but it's still doing. And I had a little piece of vanilla cream in one of the tires that was looking very sad. It's still looking sad, but still alive. Where there's life, there's hope. And then my handsome Nigrescens that just seems to do so well year after year. And that has put on quite a bit of growth since I popped it in. And then I've got Purple Haze, and you wouldn't guess it was Purple Haze, because by this time of the season, a lot of the bloom, and hence the purpley shades, have faded, and the greens are coming through. And then one of our first up, Undulata, is one of our first over. Very autumnal, poor little Undulata. And then I've got an unmunched Mourning Dove. Hasn't put a lot of growth on this year, I have to say, but it was eaten to glory last year, and it's still going. Then I have Golden Spider at the back there, again looking quite autumnal. Then I have Little Old Gold Drop fighting off the bramble. And drummer boy at the back there that I rescued from my front garden, it was quite a bit smaller than that, so it's putting its roots down well. And then I have a big trumpet. I love the shape of those leaves. And one of my favourites, totally twisted, with the lovely pink stems. But again, it's looking autumnal, a little washed out, because this is quite a sunny spot in the arrangement, and that's why I now have a roughed up in the top tire where I had pineapple upside down cake before, and it really did struggle, that poor thing. But roughed up has some substance in its parentage, and consequently it will deal with quite a bit of light. The one I had at Hyde Hall at the beginning of the month turned a beautiful gold colour whilst it was outside. Absolutely lovely. It's a nice colour, nice enough colour when it's in shade, a sort of limey colour, but the gold becomes very vibrant. But now this little one is getting a little bit bleached and end of yearish, but it looks lovely and it's done really well. And then we have our blue mouse ears. And gold rush. And then I popped Quill in with Libby, and both of them were showing signs of not wanting to do particularly well, but since they've been in together they've perked up. Now Libby should be taller and sit nicely at the back of Quill, but like a lot of things in the garden this year, again they've been a little bit on the stunted side. Lack of regular rain of a decent amount. And then we have a rather brambled up golden tiara, a Deja blue that is more like Deja green at the moment. Again, it's in a sunny spot, so it's lost its blue tinges, largely lost its blue tinges, but still got the lovely variegation. And then at the back I've got Sky Dancer, which has surprised me how it deals with sunlight. It will cope with quite bright spots, and I decided to take one with me to Hyde Hall and see how it got on, and it didn't scorch at all, which for a blue, largely blue, bloom leaf, it surprised me somewhat. It does very well and very prolific with its flowers. And then I have an old favourite, Blonde Elf, and that's doing very well for such a small plant with a fine root system. And then I've got my Crystal Dixie that got rather nipped early on, but it's put some new leaves out and has recovered quite a bit, but again it's looking very autumnal, but not as poor and autumnal as my late Celtic Uplands. I had to take quite a lot of leaves off that in the spring because it came through so fast and then got completely clobbered. Probably a combination of the cold and the wind that was coming through from the field. And then in the front we have Olympic Edger, and then Blue Dimples, and Yin, again looking quite autumnal, and Lakeside Blue Cherub. Again, that's a miniature, but it's doing very, very well considering it's got such a fine root system. And then I've got Volcano Island, another red stem variety that you have to be very careful with the vine weevil. There you go, vine weevil damage. This isn't growing as well as I thought it might. As the wider margin of the two between, well obviously you've got Fire Island, Paradise Island has a narrow margin and Volcano Island has the wider margin. Out of the three you would expect Volcano Island to be the strongest grower. Indeed it is in the collection, but it's struggling a little bit in here, but will persist. And then I have a Hands Up. It's looking slightly raggy. I wouldn't be surprised if something's landed on it. It might have been a branch or something and knocked a few leaves down, but it's holding its own. And one that's done particularly well this year is Dress Blues. I didn't realise I'd focused in quite a bit. Let's go out There we go. That's put a lot of growth on. It should be a large, and it's heading to the right height. It's very pretty. And then I've got Blue Monday. Glorious Old Glory. Complete with a lovely edible section there. Now, I moved a grass from my garden, and I think when I moved that grass, I moved a little colony of snails with it that made a beeline for the end of the tyres. I found snail trails all the way around the tyre, and when I noticed this was happening, I rubbed over the tyre, got rid of all the snail trail, and the damage essentially stopped. I think I confused it, because they lay their snail trail and use it to navigate back to the plant that they've started eating, and I don't know if you can actually pick up, a lot of that damage is well and truly healed around the edges. I'm fairly confident that that did the trick. And then of course I went hunting for them as well, that you have to get the numbers down, otherwise they just go off and eat something else you don't want them to eat. And then we have little old Kasuji. Considering that's it's getting the brunt of the wind, that's actually not doing too badly. And at the back finally I have little Tsugaru Komachi. But the planting and the shrubs are all starting to mature nicely, and getting quite a nice backdrop for the rubber rockery. Go to the fence and look around. And I have a few more tyres waiting. And there's the grass that I moved from my garden. It's helping to be a bit of a windbreak, but you might be able to tell on the audio that the wind has picked up. Now I'm standing here. And I've put a stick and net windbreak as well, that's actually helped a lot. Yeah, and plus all the nettles are loving it in the pile of soil, which I have to get out at some point, but all in due course. And I'll pan around to the garden. So you can see the structure of it. It's a dull old day, but during the summer it really did look lovely, and visitors to the nursery were thoroughly enjoying it and loving the rubber rockery and going away and ideas of their own. So it's working. Bye for now.